No problem. I love being here. Yeah. Trying to think. The shortest version of it. Um, yeah, I got out of chiropractic school. Felt a little lost. Didn't know. I had no zero vision of what I wanted a business to be like. I didn't know. I knew like the kind of holistic things I wanted in an office, but I didn't know what kind of patients I wanted to attract, what kind of value I had for myself, anything like that. And above all, like I had zero confidence in my adjusting skills and my patient skills, all that stuff. So I looked for the easiest route, which was getting into corporate because they'll scoop you up like soup. And I just got in there, and that was just my first experience. You're just thrown to the dogs. They just say, "Here you go. Here's your patient load. This is what you're gonna do, or this is how what we expect of you." And I've always been a more like disciplined child, I guess you would say, growing up. So when I was given structure, it was a better outcome for me. And I didn't know how to structure myself. That was the thing. So I started to meet their structures, their demands, and I started to learn things, and I started to figure myself out, and then above all, get all the experience because it was just heavy patient volume. And once I started to get good feedback from patients, good feedback from corporate, good feedback, like those affirmations, I started to like build up that confidence. And I was like, okay, you know what? Like now I'm starting to have a vision of what I want for patients. I'm starting to have a vision of what I see myself doing for the future, long term and short term, and started to put those goals into place. Because I've always heard about them. I've always heard podcasts about goal setting or vision setting, but I never like implemented them until then. So it took a bit of character building or like confidence building before I got to that level for sure. You're welcome. Go ahead. I was gonna say like the patients are honestly like everybody's feedback, everybody talking to me, like that's why I listen so much is because that helps my growth in turn, you know. So you talking to me all the time. I was like, okay, well, I did that wrong, or I did this right, or okay, these topics are good to talk about. Let's focus on these, or what can I help motivate? Stuff like that. So it's nice. Mm, nice. So, oof. Okay. Um, I think believing in yourself is finding the character that you are on and off. You could say the table, but on and off, being in the public eye and being on your own. So, that being said, I remember my dad told me a long time ago, like anything you have to do in secret isn't worth doing, because if you can't be open with yourself or you can't be open in the public, it's not it shouldn't be a part of you or shouldn't be part of your character. And speaking of, again, Crohn's disease with you, with myself, I had eating disorder for a long time when I was younger. So give me 1 second. Hold on. um, an eating disorder when I was younger. And for the longest time, between like the ages of 18 to 25, I stayed in like a sick phase and I found myself in there. And I didn't know what to be without it. I didn't know what to be without being a victim to myself, to the sickness, not being babied by anybody, things like that. So, and that was a part of a character. So, in terms of, and we're all able to evolve and change. And I think that's what I kind of found over time was like, okay, I can leave this part of me behind, shed it like old skin, and become something that I really want to be proud of. Um, and be like finding the discipline that you have for that. So every day waking up, there's things that I always preach about, like maybe positive affirmations for yourself or taking care of your body, eating healthy, exercise, stuff like that. Do I implement those in my everyday activity? If I'm going to say that to other people, do I practice what I preach? And I think that's a big part of like, okay, and when you start checking off those lists every day, like, okay, I got up, I brushed my teeth, I got up and I ran, I got up and I worked out, I got up and I took care of the kids. Like, when you start checking off those boxes and you can be proud of yourself every day, you learn to say, okay, like, cool, this girl, this woman, this lady I'm becoming is pretty awesome. And I can love her just as she is. So, it's been nice. Like, it's learning to cheer for yourself, and then again, stop comparing yourself to other people. Um, because there's a lot of people that I tend to look up to, but all of us are human beings. All of us have downfalls, mistakes, things that again we're not proud of, maybe addictions or things that we can't necessarily let go of, whether how big or small it is. So learning that, okay, even though people look at me a certain way and I look at somebody like in awe, um, they're going to have something also that they're dealing with or combating. So why don't we all just take each other with a grain of salt and whatever I can give you that gives you good stuff, take it, eat it, thrive from it. Whatever I give you that you can learn from and say, oh, maybe that's not what I want to do. Maybe Jojo does something that I don't necessarily find appealing. Don't take it with you. So I'm learning to just, I guess, be myself, and whatever I attract is going to be there, and whatever I don't, it just passes on through. I guess. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in terms of leaving corporate world, um, I took life as a value of like, do I want to have quality or quantity? Do I want to have a quality lifestyle or do I want to have quantity? Do I want to have wealth in the definition that I thought was wealth back in the day? Because wealth can mean a whole bunch of different things to a lot of people. Wealth can be your health being really good and on par. Wealth can mean financial freedom. Wealth can mean time freedom. Wealth can mean so many different things. And I had to really take that perspective of wealth and take what family values had been implanted in me and kind of like sit back and say, what do I feel that wealth is? And it wasn't until I had the girls, it wasn't until, I had this family with Mark that I realized, like, you know what? Wealth to me is having quality time with them. We go camping, we go hiking, we go all these different places. Whether, and not everything has to be expensive, like we just jump in the car and we camp like in the back of the truck and it doesn't cost us, it maybe cost us $100 for gas. Like that's all we do. So, um, that's what I realized. Like, what am I working hard for? Am I working hard to give my family quality time with me? Am I working hard to give them money that can disappear in an instant? Like who's to say money is going to be worth anything in 20 years? So I just started to change that perspective, and that's what again built the confidence for me to step out because I realized like um, yeah, everything out there can be manifested. Everything out there can be given by your discipline and your drive. So again, this goes back to behind closed doors. Like, what am I doing behind closed doors that is going to help my business, and what am I doing behind closed doors that is going to make me fall back onto old times or make me not as motivated. And honestly, Jenna, if I'm honest, I have to reset my mind like probably every 3 months. Like I take like a mental evaluation for myself. Some people probably do it a lot sooner together, some people a lot later. But I definitely take a step back every 3 months and go, okay, like, am I where I'm at? Like, do I like it? Do I like maybe having these days off? Do I like treating this many patients? Do I need more people? Am I making enough? Am I not making enough? Like, I take those evaluations and I take it to heart. Like, am I being a good doctor for people? Am I doing good evaluations? Am I referring out or am I telling them no if I shouldn't see them? Like it's a lot of constant just taking self inventory, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and especially spiritually. God for me has played such a big role in and out of my life, and I've taken him for granted so many times, and I've held on to him steadfast so many times. And I always make sure, am I implementing the right things mentally to get ready for the day, to get ready for business, to get ready for my family. And when I find those things start to fall away, that's when I realize, okay, I gotta set disciplines again. Like everyday steps for me to follow so that I go through with my word. So leaving corporate and going into self business is definitely a hard step. But once you realize and set your goals and then again reevaluate your goals every 3 months, 6 months, every year, whatever you want to do, um, that to me is a better decision than just following somebody else's dream just to make a buck, just to go to Disneyland in November or whatever you want to do. So, yeah, I'm not sure. Mhm. Um, let's try to. I'm trying to think about what to say for that. I guess it comes back again back down to character for myself. Like first and foremost is my faith and belief, and having my higher power. So when I resort back to that and resort back to, we have our basic instructions here. So if I implement that in my everyday, I get rezoned and refocused back on again to what's important. Like, what am I living for? And am I living for finances? Am I living for A, B, and C? Or am I living to make a difference every day? Am I living to be here with my family? Am I living, again, to give quality to life rather than quantity to life? And I really, again, I love that aspect because coming from corporate, they want quantity all the time, quantity, quantity, quantity. But do they care about the quality, the outcome, the what the package gets designed and made into, what the patients feel, what their feedback is? And when it becomes a quantity issue, I realize that I feel like I'm failing versus when it becomes a quality issue. I take pride in the work that I do with people. I take pride in being able to, like, I have gifts, and I am start like, it took a long time. It took into my 30s to realize what my gifts are, and everybody's going to have different forms of gifts. Um, but once you start to really sit with yourself and learn yourself and take that time, you're like, okay, like, I'm a great listener. I'm good at giving people touches, or putting my hand on their shoulder and making them feel better. I'm really good at these things. So why not be the best at it? Why not be so good at it that I make 10 people feel better, then they go out in the world, make 20 people feel better, then it keeps like paying forward. So that's, I guess that's where my belief is like, as long as I'm making differences every day, even small ones, it's going to add up over time. So yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Um, Honestly, it started back in my college days. Again, just, you have the time to be able to watch YouTubes or listen to podcasts all the time. So I would always be listening to, like, oh, I can't even think of names of people so far, like off the top of my head, but I would listen to leaders and what they said about discipline, like getting up at 5 a.m. and doing your list of stuff. And I found the best thing that works for me is making little lists, like just tiny things, and giving myself, like, it can depend on, I mean, us females, we can kind of go through our phases for the month, so sometimes it depends. Do I need a little buildup of confidence? Do I need a little buildup of this or that? And I'll make checklists. Like, the checklist can be big or they can be so tiny as, like, getting myself ready for the day and giving myself, like, little applauds throughout the day. Like, okay, you got yourself ready, you got the girls ready, you're out the door, and you're even 5 minutes early. Like, cool. Like, give yourself a little reward. Like, even if it's just like, good job, mom, like, whatever. So that's what I've learned for myself, is giving myself my own feedback. And again, checking in with myself. Did I do a good job today? How could I have done better? So I know sometimes people have, like, okay, an attitude of gratitude. I'll admit, most days I'm pretty hard on myself. But it's taking, again, that everything with, like, a grain of salt. Like, okay, I did good on this, but this could have used work. And honestly, it's just checklist after checklist for me. And routine is something I really like. I'm a morning person. That's when I get a lot of good stuff done. I love my patients more in the morning, I'm going to admit, than way later on in the afternoon. Um, so, yeah. Saturday mornings are good too, but I love my getting myself up. If I can get sunshine in the morning, get fresh air in the morning, a walk or a run with the girls, um, get my water in, my breakfast in, stuff like that. Like, everything, I feel like everything starts for me the moment I wake up. Some people kind of get their day started in the afternoon. Some people are night owls. Some people are, they have different times of doing stuff. But, like, if I don't get my workout in the morning, if I don't get my day started and my checklist going first thing, like, to me, I start getting behind already. I start having, like, anxiety for the day. So, I guess that's where I would stand with keeping myself disciplined. Another thing, again, is that self inventory, checking in for the month, checking in every 3 months to say, is my body, is my spirituality, is my mentality, is my emotion where I want it to be? Um, and that, again, leads back to spirituality. I think the biggest thing, Jenna, for me, in terms of confidence, in terms of belief in myself, in terms of getting out there, was finding my higher power. Because I would constantly, like, and for me, that's having faith in God and reading the Bible. And for me, like, it wasn't until I latched onto something else that took the control out of my hands that I realized, okay, I can only do so much, and I can be myself as much as possible, in the best way that I know how, and then things are going to fall in place from there, if that makes sense. What I'm trying to get at is, I would do a lot of comparing, and that's what made me fall back a lot. So I would compare and say, well, Jenna's really good at talking with people, and she's really good at reading a lot of books, and this guy's really good at muscles. Like, he knows every single muscle by heart, and I have to still look at a book. Or, my husband's really good at agility sports, and I can't even, like, run, and I'll trip over a thing. You know what I mean? Like, but I realized, again, and this worked with self-evaluation and self-work, and a lot of, like, looking back in my life, I realized I am a good listener, I'm a good emotional support person, and that's my gift in life. So why not utilize it to help others? And keep practicing towards that. Like, I practice, I sometimes record myself, to be honest, and listen to myself, so that I realize, okay, am I being a baby? Is this real? Can I feel this emotion? should I be feeling like this? And I realized, okay, like I can get over this hump, or you know what, no, Jojo, but at least you heard yourself. Like, I honestly try to listen to myself, which is probably hard for people. I'm sure they don't hear what they want to say or think or anything like that. So, yeah. Yeah. Hmm. Hmm. That is a great question. And you know what? It just binged off the top of my head as soon as you were talking about all that. Being out in nature. Like, I'm a big nature fanatic. And honestly, that's why part of my discipline is going on my runs in the morning and things like that. I used to run with headphones all the time, but honestly, I don't anymore now that I've started running with my dog, because I just have to be alert with everything. And honestly, taking time in nature and taking the girls out in nature, watching them explore, things like that, really grounds me and brings me back into like the present moment and into life. Because when you say that you got down and out about your knee for that marathon, that's the same thing. When I tripped in my half marathon at mile 2, and I signed up late, so believe me, I paid a lot of money. It was at night. I was like ready to go. I'm 5 months pregnant. I'm like, I'm gonna prove to the women that you can run. I'm gonna prove to my mom like I can't trip, like all these things, and that's the first thing I do is fall. But I cried more so because of my ego that night than I did about my ankle hurting. And my husband's like, well, you're not getting paid for this. Like, I don't know why you're so upset. And I'm just like, because there was so much I wanted to prove. And that right there was the downfall. Because you shouldn't have to prove to anybody. And again, going back to my higher power, going back to reading the Bible, there's nothing I have to prove to him. I'm already loved, I'm already willfully made. So here I am. And um, and then you again, you took a couple weeks to kind of recover from your knee and get through that mindset of what you wanted, but was it what you needed? And that's how I feel too about a lot of things. Like, is this something that I want, or is this something that I need? And going back out to nature, I look at like little ants getting things, and I look at like how a rock forms, or how a tree is fallen over or anything like that. And nature doesn't sit there and like complain or say, well, it's going to take me 2 weeks for me to heal, like from all the landslides, from all the rain. Like, nature just does what nature does and goes by day. And I was like, sometimes you got to take a step back and like, what is today? Am I going by today, or am I trying to already shoot 10 years ahead? That might not even happen. So, yeah, it's taking perspective again about time and the quality of time versus the quantity. So, yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I do agree with like feeling the emotion, because even again, even though our hearts can be deceiving, it's okay to cry. It's okay to feel defeated. It's okay to feel like a failure, and let it go. And I definitely believe in like whether you're a crier, whether you're a go out and punch punching bags kind of person, or go out and run kind of person, like feel it, let it go, and then go get okay. Like I gave myself 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 24 hours to feel this emotion. Let's wash ourselves clean and then let's move on with the next step, because it's easy to fester for a while. I'm a big person that can fall into a victim trap for sure, and then I got to remember that things aren't happening to me, they're happening for me, and I can switch that narrative around. Mhm. Yeah. That's a great question, because that has been taking probably the last 3 or 4 years in the works. Um, I not sure. Well, I'm sure I've told you this, but I'm going on 4 years sober now. So back in the day, I would run to any form of alcohol or whatever to numb anything. But now I realize, and again, finding my higher power, I go straight into either worship or reading scripture or writing down um, just gratitudes, writing down the smallest things like I have clothes on my back, I have food in my belly, I got a car to drive, I have gas, like just those tiny little things. And then that sets a trickle effect of like, okay, actually things aren't as crazy or as terrible, and I'm able to get through this. And then I start thinking of like and again, coming from a scientific background too, I think of the little things like, thank goodness for my healthy cells. Thank goodness I have all four like limbs and I can walk and do fun things with my kids, and like all these different things. So it's just again that attitude of gratitude and reframing the mind, um, and taking a second to myself. I definitely have to have time to myself. I can't I sometimes I'm not afraid to ask for help anymore. I used to be that way. I used to be like I have it all. But now I'll ask my mom if she can watch the kids, or I'll ask my husband if he can give me 5 minutes, and then I take that time for myself. And I think time for yourself is the big, and eating well, and doing all those things like sleeping well and giving yourself good hydration, treating your body right, your temple right, is the biggest form of self-care and self-discipline that you can give yourself. So, yeah. Yeah. Mhm. Mhm. Yep. Um, I honestly think I would pack up the family and we would live somewhere. I would choose to try to move every couple of years to a location where we didn't know anything at all. Like, I'm talking like the outback and going to, Africa and going down into like Brazil and just exploring different cultures and places, learning their healing system like holistically, learning how they do lifestyle, things like that, and just emerge ourselves, and that honestly is a fear for me. Like I always wanted to travel when I was younger, and what held me back was like, I'm not going to know their language. I'm not going to know how to get by. I'm not going to know anything, like, But I think that's the biggest awakening is to make yourself uncomfortable like that. And yeah, I would do that. I know. I'll learn how to, adjust with those hammers and stones. Oh, thank you. I appreciate being here.